Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Pan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. Positive global cues lift the Lal Street. The Sensex gains nearly 1,300 points. The Nifty puts on 400 points. All sectoral indices close in the green, with financials leading the rebound. The rupee also gains more than 30 paise against the dollar. 94% of fund managers on the Lal Street expect another RBI rate hike in December. Those, of course, who CNBC-TV18 has polled. They also see the repo rate peaking only by March next year. Majority also expect the rupee to stay between 82 to 83 against the US dollar over the next 6 months. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive poll. Reliance Jio will launch the beta trials of 5G services in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata starting tomorrow. Jio has promised to provide 5G coverage across the entire country by December 2023. The Competition Commission of India approves a $10 billion merger between Zee Entertainment and Sony with certain modifications. The CCI had flagged potential abuse of market dominance and monopolistic pricing. Zee had proposed to shut down some general entertainment channels. Nearly 15% of the companies on the BSE 500 have a foreign currency loan exposure of 3.5 lakh crore rupees. As the Indian rupee weakens against the dollar, CNBC-TV18 analysis finds chemicals, refineries and healthcare are the most vulnerable sectors with high forex loan exposure. The Election Commission proposes to mandate more disclosures from political parties to explain possible ways to finance promises made to voters. Says current declarations are routine, ambiguous and inadequate. Seeks a response from parties in a couple of weeks. The move comes even as the Supreme Court is hearing a case about so-called freebies. Ukraine's President Zelensky signs a decree ruling out negotiations with Russia's Vladimir Putin as Ukrainian troops reclaim more territory. Zelensky also hits back at billionaire Elon Musk for setting up a Twitter poll on areas annexed by Russia. North Korea sends a missile over Japan, prompting warnings for residents to take shelter. This is the first time since 2017 that North Korea has fired a missile over Japanese territory. At least 10 people killed and dozens injured after an avalanche in Uttarakhand. A group of more than 30 mountaineers were trapped and the army was called in to help with the rescue operations. Well, let's start with the market action where positive global cues have helped the bulls regain some lost ground. The Sensex gaining nearly 1,300 points and the Nifty added 400 points today. The Nifty is now closer to the 17,300 mark. Mid-caps faring even better with the index rallying more than 3%. Financials also today saw a rebound, so ending in the green. Remember, tomorrow is a market holiday on account of Dussehra, so it is a truncated week for our markets. But global cues at this point in time suggest a strong rebound there as well. In the money market, the rupee gaining more than 30 paise against the dollar. The Indian currency remains above the 81 mark. The greenback did weaken against most currencies today after a strong run-up in the last few weeks. So 81.52, that is the dollar rupee for you. And crude oil prices rising once again. Both Brent and NYMEX are up as OPEC nations consider another cut to production on Wednesday. OPEC will mull cutting output by 1 million barrels a day, and this is driving oil prices higher across the world. India's trade deficit in September has marginally eased to around $27 billion from nearly $28 billion in the previous month. However, the September trade deficit is almost 90% higher as compared to last year. Exports have contracted by 3.5% year-on-year to $33 billion. Imports have grown by more than 5% year-on-year to $59 billion. And staying with trade, after the government hiked the import duty on platinum from 10.7% to 15.4%, sources say the move is aimed at curbing the illegal imports of gold in the garb of platinum. We learned the Customs Department found several cases where platinum alloys with just 4% platinum and breast gold were being cleared at the reduced import duty of 11%. So, what do the markets make of the current state of the economy? CNBC-TV18 polled top fund managers after the Reserve Bank's rate hike came in on Friday. 94% of the fund managers that have been polled by CNBC-TV18 expect another hike in December and the repo rate to peak by March next year. Prashant Nair is here with the details. Prashant.
Well, the big question, which is very relevant here in India and globally as well, is where will central bank policy rates, RBI in our case, and globally, where will they settle at? How high is high enough? We conducted a poll of debt fund managers and experts which threw up some interesting insights. Well, first, the question that we asked them was, where do they see repo rate settling by December? Almost 94% of them expect the Reserve Bank of India to hike the repo rate in its next policy meeting in December. Also, over 80% now expect a hike of between 35 to 50 basis points. Most of them also see repo rate peaking at between 6.25 to 6.5%. 50% of the respondents see the repo rate peaking by March of 2023. Next, about 69% see the RBI changing its stance to neutral in February next year. Interestingly, most experts don't see the 10-year government securities yield rising beyond 7.5%, which should come as a relief to equity fund managers as well. I mean, the yield which is polled is not much higher than where we are right now. Even on the currency, the rupee, the dollar rupee, despite the recent scare, a majority don't see it going past 83 to a dollar, not much by way of depreciation from here. Despite the relative stability that we've seen here in India amidst the global turmoil, market participants do tell us, though, that they will continue to closely watch geopolitics, global sticky inflation, and, God forbid, a financial accident, which, if it were to come to pass, could throw things into disarray.
Prashant, many thanks for joining us. That is the CNBC-TV18 poll of fund managers on where they expect rates and the rupee over the next few months. Now, K.K. Mistry, the CEO of HDFC, says the toughest of rate hikes in frequency as well as in magnitude is perhaps behind us. However, he also added that the tightening cycle may continue for more time.
When Fed increases rates, then it puts some degree of pressure on the rupee, on the currency. And if the rupee depreciates, then it starts putting indirectly pressure on inflation because oil prices, the cost of imports becomes higher because you're paying in rupees for what you're importing. So it's a difficult situation for RBI to handle. Till such time as Fed remains aggressive, we might see some more rate hikes in India also. Though I don't believe that that the rate hikes going forward will be that many or that sharp incrementally.
Well, that's K.K. Mistry on rates. And staying with rates, the United Nations body has warned that a drive by central banks of richer nations to hike interest rates in response to soaring prices is, and I quote, an imprudent gamble that could dangerously backfire. The report, which has been prepared by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, suggests that a course correction is needed to prevent a cascading series of debt, health and climate emergencies for poorer countries. Now, the Competition Commission of India has approved the $10 billion merger between Zee Entertainment and Sony, but with certain modifications. The CCI had flagged potential abuse of market dominance and monopolistic pricing. Zee had proposed to shut down some general entertainment channels to get the CCI's approval. Shilpa Ranipeta is here with the details. Much awaited, Shilpa, finally going through, CCI clearing the deal, but with modifications.
You're absolutely right. After several roadblocks, the $10 billion Zee-Sony merger has received the competition regulator's nod, but with certain modifications. Now, we're given to understand that the regulators also asked both Zee and Sony to ensure misuse of market dominance does not happen. Reuters reported, remember, on September 1st that CCI had found that the merger will potentially hurt competition by having unparalleled bargaining power because it will create an entity with over 92 channels in the country. Now, currently, Zee and Sony have less than about 40% viewership as a combined entity across genres, but a 50% plus share in the movie genre. Now, following this, reports also suggested that both the channels had offered fresh concessions to the regulator, which also included a proposal to shut down a major entertainment channel. Some reported that this could be Zee's Marathi channel. Now, remember, this merger was first announced in September last year, where Sony would hold about a 50.86% in the merged entity, and the promoters of Zee would hold about 3.99%, and other Zee shareholders about 45.15%. Now, a formal order from CCI is awaited along with the details of what these modifications are. That's what we'll be watching out for. Back to you.
All right, Shilpa, appreciate you joining us. So that is the big merger that now gets the green flag from the CCI, but with modifications. September, a sluggish month for Indian FMCG companies, with sales declining by nearly 10% versus August, according to retail analytics firm Bizom. Cautious stocking up by consumers amidst inflation worries and a slowing rural income were reasons for sales slowing down. Speaking of retail sales, according to the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association, total vehicle retail sales have grown by a healthy 11% in September versus last year. Among categories, two-wheeler sales rose 9%, while three-wheeler sales recorded a 72% jump. Meanwhile, passenger vehicle sales were up 10%, commercial vehicle sales up 19%. Auto dealers are optimistic of better sales in this festive season, expect passenger vehicle sales to in fact come in at a decade high. That is the hope. Kia India has recalled over 44,000 Karen units to inspect and fix any potential error in its airbag control module software. The automaker said that any update is needed would be done free of cost. The big corporate story: Reliance Jio will launch beta trials of 5G services in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata starting Wednesday. That is the Shera. Jio has promised to provide 5G coverage across the entire country by December 2023. Ashmit joins us now on what this means, what kind of internet speeds we can expect. Ashmit.
Well, we've been covering the 5G rollout from Saturday from the India Mobile Congress, and there's a lot of excitement. And the announcement was made on Saturday for launching 5G by Mukesh Ambani himself, and today we find that it's being implemented. Tomorrow is, of course, the rollout. The beta trial version will be rolled out in 4 cities, to be specific. That's Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, as well as Varanasi. These are the 4 cities that have been picked. What's important to point out is that this will be an invitation-based program, wherein select customers will be invited to be on board for this beta trial version, and then subsequently, gradually, the infrastructure will be built up, and only once there's sufficient infrastructure capable of supporting the network for the entire city will this be made open to all the customers. As far as what the expectation can be, well, 3 things to keep in mind. Number 1, beta trial version of the Jio 5G rollout will offer unlimited 5G data, but what's important is the speed component. The speeds being offered are huge. More than 1 Gbps. That's the speed that Jio hopes to offer, at least as far as this beta trial version is concerned. Another important aspect to keep in mind, Jio is the only player in the market that acquired the 700 megahertz band. That is the band that is critical for carrying for these 5G data. This is critical. It beats through various walls, basements, elevators. Whenever you find some difficulty in terms of connecting, that is where 700 megahertz is often cited as a solution, and that is the one spectrum that is available to Jio. So that will, of course, also be another standout feature. But broadly, this is pretty much in line with the deadline that had been rolled out on Saturday. December 2023 is by when Jio hopes to cover the whole of the country.
All right, Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. After the mega 5G rollout last week, the government has allocated 26,000 crore rupees to set up 25,000 telecom towers in the country over the next 500 days. The government will utilize the Universal Service Obligation, or the USO fund, for the deployment of these towers. It will use its special purpose vehicle, Bharat Broadband Network Limited, to do the same. The government has simplified the financial eligibility norms of private FM radio stations to allow participation of companies with net worth of 1 crore rupees in the bidding process for Category C and D cities. As per the amendment approved by the Cabinet, the government has also accepted the long-pending demand of the radio industry to remove the 15% national cap on channel holding. Here's another exclusive analysis tonight. Nearly 15% of BSE 500 companies have a foreign currency loan exposure of 3.5 lakh crore rupees. As the Indian rupee weakens against the dollar, chemicals, refineries and healthcare are the most vulnerable sectors with high forex loan exposure. Sonal Bhutra joins us now with the findings. Sonal.
The weakness in rupee is all one can talk about, and it has broken previous records last week. So my colleague Yusuf and I thought, let's look at some data to focus on which companies have a higher forex exposure. So 71 companies from BSE 500, and this excludes banks and financials. They have a foreign currency exposure of 3.5 lakh crore rupees and aggregate borrowings of 15.2 lakh crore rupees, out of which 23% is foreign currency loan. This is as per data from Ace Equity. And sectors which have the highest foreign loan exposure are chemicals, refineries and healthcare segment. Breaking it down to individual companies now, the one with the highest percentage exposure to foreign debt. Alkyl Amines, small loan amount, but all of it is in foreign currency. Glenmark Pharma with almost 90% debt in forex, Shipping Corporation at 100%, Oil India at 85%, Adani Ports as well at 66%. Moving on, UPL at 61.5%, there's Polyplex at 58%, SGVN at 55%, and ONGC at 53%, just to name a few. So it will lead to higher interest outgo in case of dollar-denominated loans and will lead to higher expenditure. Important to note, the breakup of the forex loan in a specific currency is not available. But with some examples, also wanted to point out that a lot of these companies have substantial export revenues as well, thereby negating the impact of higher interest outflow because dollar strengthening will aid earnings as well for them, right? Now, the revenues in export markets could be a lot more and not necessarily denominated in dollars. So that is something that we need to remember. Alkyl Amines has 23 crore of debt in foreign currency, but 270 crore worth of exports. UPL has 16,000 crore debt in foreign currency, but 36,000 crore in terms of revenues from exports, out of which 7% is from Europe, 37% exposure is to North America. Glenmark Pharma has 3,300 crore of debt that is in foreign currency and 6,700 crore of revenues from exports. Sudarshan Chemicals that exports to 80 plus countries has almost 1,000 crore revenues from exports and 480 crore of debt in terms of forex. Additionally, as per Bloomberg, nearly $11 billion worth of foreign currency notes are getting matured over the next 1 year, while bonds worth $500 million each are maturing in October for NTPC and BPCL. Next year would see bonds of similar values getting matured for Vedanta Resources, IOCL and ONGC Videsh, to name a few here.
All right, Sonal, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a break, but up next, the Election Commission proposes to mandate more disclosures by political parties to explain ways to finance the promises that they make to voters. That and more when we return. The Election Commission has proposed to mandate more disclosures by political parties to explain possible ways to finance poll promises made to voters. The EC said that the current declarations are, and I quote, routine, ambiguous and inadequate, end of quote. The election regulator has also proposed to amend the Model Code of Conduct to make these directions operational. It's asked political parties to give their feedback on the issue by the 19th of October. Timsy joins us now with more. Timsy, this comes even as the Supreme Court is hearing a case about the so-called freebies. What has the Election Commission proposed?
In a major move, the Election Commission of India has written to all political parties seeking their responses to mandate declarations for election manifesto promises, the financial viability of those promises to be shared with voters. Election Commission of India has recommended that the political parties should provide authentic information to voters and they should give clarity about financial implications and where will the finances be actually raised from to meet those promises. The move comes on the back of the fact that ECI said that it cannot overlook inadequate disclosures on election promises, and empty election promises have far-reaching ramifications. Not just this, the Election Commission has proposed to launch a standard performer for disclosures for the political parties to capture standard parameters which are as used by the Finance Commission, RBI, FRBM, CAG and in budgets. The Chief Secretaries and Finance Secretaries of States and Union Finance Secretary at Centre will be tasked to populate fiscal information based on the revised estimates and budget estimates in the year of general elections, and political parties will have to give details of revenue generation, rationalization of expenditure, impact on committed liabilities and whether the party plans to raise further debt to meet these promises and what will be the impact on the FRBM limits. Parties have been given time till 19th of October to come back with their suggestions before the guidelines are cast in stone. Let's see what is in offing.
Timsy, many thanks. A quick check of some of the other headlines tonight. At least 10 people killed, dozens injured after an avalanche in Uttarakhand. A group of more than 30 mountaineers were trapped. The army was called in to help with the rescue operations. Domestic help accused of allegedly murdering Jammu and Kashmir's Director General of Prisons, Hemant Kumar Lohia. He has now been arrested. The 23-year-old was nabbed after a manhunt and is currently being interrogated. For the first time in history, Home Minister Amit Shah has announced scheduled tribe status for Pahadis in Jammu and Kashmir. Addressing a rally in the Rajouri district, the Home Minister said that the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A opens the doors for Pahadis to get reservation in education and jobs. The union government has withdrawn a notice that sparked outrage among journalists. A list of all press writers, photographers and videographers covering Prime Minister Modi's rally in Himachal tomorrow were being asked to bring a certificate of their character verification. The Superintendent of Police at Bilaspur issued a new notification on Tuesday with apologies saying that the previous notice stands withdrawn. The Central Bureau of Investigation, along with state police officials, have carried out searches across 105 locations to crack down on cyber-related financial crimes. Sources say the operation was carried out based on inputs from the FBI, Interpol, Royal Canadian Mounted Police and Australian Federal Police. CBI claims cash worth 1.5 crore rupees and gold worth more than 1 crore rupees was recovered. Look at some of the global headlines. North Korea has sent a missile over Japan, prompting warnings for residents to take shelter. This is the first time since 2017 that North Korea has fired a missile over Japanese territory. The latest in the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukrainian President Zelensky has signed a decree refusing any further negotiations with Russian President Putin. The development comes after Putin formally proclaimed that the 4 occupied Ukrainian regions were to become part of Russia. Russia, however, does not have full control of any of the 4 regions it claims to have annexed. The Russian military has acknowledged that the Ukrainian army has advanced inside the Kherson province. And our colleague Sanjay Suri visits a wall plastered with pictures of the soldiers that have died fighting for Ukraine in this war. Here's a look at what has happened in the blood-torn Kyiv.
This here is a long wall in Kyiv, too long to honor all the Ukrainian soldiers who've died fighting in this war. 3,500 pictures just on this wall, and it's not enough. More space is being created behind to create more room to remember and to honor yet more soldiers. A reminder that the victory in Kharkiv and then in Lyman, and that one in Donetsk region, coming the day after Putin had claimed that to be a part of the Russian Federation, is a reminder that those victories are coming at a very heavy human price. But this price has done nothing to diminish the faith and the belief that Ukrainians will continue to fight on to reclaim more territory that is theirs for themselves and for Ukraine.
She's here for her husband who was killed in Kharkiv.
So every kilometer, every piece of every village, every settlement is a big victory for us, and of course we feel a big proud for that. And when I saw the photos of the soldiers, of the men who died, it seems like they felt like they had to go there. Something was calling them.
Yeah, I think that this is the very start of our counteroffense, a big counteroffense on different fronts, which will eventually end up with us liberating all of the territories that Russia even occupied in 2014, including all the Donbass and all the Crimea.
Amidst all the mourning comes anger with Putin.
No Putin, yes Zelensky.
No Putin.
We for peace, not war, and all of us for peace.
We should be strong and glory for Ukraine.
Ukraine's successes in Kharkiv and now in Lyman have convinced many Ukrainians that however tragic the losses, they are now on the path of victory.
Sanjay Suri there reporting from Kyiv. Prime Minister Modi held a telephonic conversation with Ukraine's President Zelensky. Both leaders discussed the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi reiterated his call for an early cessation of hostilities and the need to pursue the path of dialogue and diplomacy. The Indian government said Prime Minister Modi expressed its firm conviction that there can be no military solution to the conflict and conveyed India's readiness to contribute to any peace efforts. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Here's wishing all our viewers a very happy Dussehra. Tomorrow, remember, is a truncated trading week. There will be no market action, but we will see you right here on CNBC-TV18 with the news. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Co-powered by Century